Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice. And I am Tails here, or simply call me Miles Tails Prower here, and we are back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD for the Nintendo Switch, plus Nintendo Switch 2, all thanks to backwards compatibility. Yeah, exactly. So last time, we essentially did manage able to finish up every single aspect in terms of World 8, which, suffice to say, despite the fact that we ended up revisiting some previous stages from time to time, mainly because of the involves those puzzle pieces, and also we did somehow finally tackle through the final temple stage in the game, and oh no, we also did manage to take on the final boss in the game again, except this time in the Nintendo Switch platform. So because of that though, yeah, everything else comes to expect, wasn't it? Well, do you remember about the fact that we are basically excited, able to actually experience a whole new world, like you stated earlier from the last video? Oh yes, exactly, because today, for this video, especially noticeable for tomorrow's video as well, for potentially a finale video of any sorts, is that today, we're about to begin World 9 for not only for the likes of the 3DS version, which originally attempted to, but it's also about the fact that with the Switch version as well. Because, if you couldn't tell from the file selection right here on file number 2, as you can see, we actually ended up in 88% done. This means about the fact that, as you can see, we've somehow managed able to get every single Kong letters, so it's just about the fact that no matter what though, there are still some puzzle pieces that needs to be found, especially that we've actually got 9 stages to go, all thanks to the forms of a brand new version of World 9. And so much to the point that, unlike the forms of how it does it back on the Wii version, there's only like one level, which appears to be the Golden Temple itself in World 9-1. However, on the 3DS version, and same applies with the forms of the Switch version as well. I almost said the 3DS version twice, by the way, which I have no idea why I somehow explained it wrong, but regardless of such though, is that, yeah, depending on what version of the game you're playing, either on the 3DS version and the Switch version these days, is that we're able to actually experience not one, but whopping 9 stages in World 9. And so much to the point that this will be a two-parter, basically, in terms of the forms of World 9 in some cases, so. And at the same time though, Sonic is about the fact that we can also try to able to show off some extra items that we can able to actually show everyone to see what the items can work until specifically by tomorrow. So because of this though, yeah, as you can see, as soon as you're able to dive back into the game itself, you do realize about the fact that the Tiki Tower is no longer to be seen around here, because obviously though we deal with the actual final blow thanks to the forms of a full moon. And as you can see, we ended up being immediately onto the Golden Temple itself. So this means about the fact that we still need to able to entering the Golden Temple at first glance, because as far as we can definitely tell about the fact that, again, in order to able to actually fully experience a whole new world, is that we need to collect all 8 of those colored orbs, because once you've done so, then obviously though we can able to actually once again able to actually access to the Golden Temple itself. So because of this though, yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to dive into this whole new version of the Golden Temple, or should I say a whole new world, depending on what two of these versions of the game you're playing on, but either way. So yeah, as you can tell about the fact that no matter what though, that yes indeed about the fact that when it comes to the forms of anything else we'd like to discuss upon, well, that's as far as we can able to say about it. So either way, let's enter in the Golden Temple itself. So as you can see, it no longer says World 9-1 like I stated earlier, because unlike the original Wii version, it does manage to say World 9-1 for the sake of the forms of the only stage you can able to actually experience with in the original version. So, and of course, just like the forms of how it does on the 3DS version and the Wii version as well, basically you can able to actually leave this place, assuming of course you don't able to actually access to opening up the Golden Temple itself. So, but since that we've already did manage to tackle through every single temple levels in the game, this means we can now able to actually access to the Golden Temple, but with more content and everything. So Well, then again though, Sonic, it was originally came from the 3DS version, but I digress. So yeah, after this particular amazing cutscene, by the way, featuring Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, so instead of able to actually transport us into, without a doubt, is the hardest stage in the entire game, so instead we immediately dive into the world Cloud, or in some cases though, Cloud as in World 9. So this means about the fact that, as you can see on screen, like I stated before, we can able to actually traverse into whopping 9 stages. So this means about the fact that there's technically one stage has already been in existence, based off on the Wii version, but if you do manage to play for the 3DS version, or nowadays the Switch version these days, you're able to actually access to 8 new levels, which is all thanks to the forms of a developer back on the 3DS version, that is. That's what appears to be Monster Games. So because of this though, that, like I stated before, is about the fact that World 9, as far as the actual video processing, as far as this is concerned, is going to be very lengthy and long, especially because, you know, like I stated earlier, there's going to be 9 stages in total for this world, so this means about the fact I don't think it's possible for us to able to actually fully complete the entire world, much like the forms of how it does it in World 5, World 6, World 7, and World 8 respectively. Yes, exactly, Sonic, especially because concerning for all that, for what I've heard anyway, is that the majority of the stages in this world is also going to be very lengthy and long too. So either way, so let's go and dive things into it with the forms of World 9-1, Crushing Columns. So basically, each and every single stage in this world is going to be based off from several worlds you've already been into. Like for instance though, in World 9-1, it does manage to take place on that familiar environment, and that's what appears to be taking place in a jungle. And same applies with the forms of the second level is going to take place on the beach, and then the third level takes place in the ruins, and vice versa, except with the forms of the 9th level, because obviously though, if I can recall correctly, that the Golden Temple is going to be relatively the same level as the forms of how it does it back on the Wii version, but the noticeable differences this time is of course lengthy, longer loading times, and not to mention though, that the controls are much more better to me than the forms of how it does it for this whole Wackle Fest, ever since during the forms of on the Wii version. I was going to say this right about now. And so, because of this though, there's going to be even more puzzle pieces to obtain, and relatively speaking though, is about the fact that, remember how in during the forms of in the Wii version, that usually relatively speaking though, is about the fact that you can able to actually collect the final 5 of those puzzle pieces in terms of the original Wii version? Well, actually as it turns out, for the likes of the 3DS version, and same applies with the forms of Switch version these days, there's going to be a lot more puzzle pieces to obtain, and that's mainly because, if you do manage to able to find every single puzzle pieces in any of the levels in World 9, we might able to actually guarantee to get ourselves a different award. So this means about the fact that, well, usually, we'll explain more about that if we somehow complete this stage first. So generally speaking though, and it's also worth knowing for the sake of time too, Sonic, is that, well, I don't think it's possible for us to able to actually get ourselves a special key or anything. Well, it's mainly because at this point in time is that we've already unlocked every single stages of how this game actually has to offer. So yeah, this means about the fact that the actual progression in terms of the forms of World 9 is concerned, it's going to be straightforward. Like basically you have to complete one of the levels in particular, and then you move on to the next. So yeah, everything else will be pretty much expected at this point. So yeah, anyway, So yeah, a few things we want to talk about this is about the fact that, well, today's date, of course, is the 13th of March today, in some cases in 2025 today, and so much to the point for the fact that until tomorrow anyway, specifically for this weekend, mind you, that the Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition theme of Tetris 99 is going to be up tomorrow. So because of this though, and also not to mention though, is about the fact that I was expecting to try to go back into playing through Sonic Dash at some point, to able to try to unlock the next cosmetic characters, like one of them for Cream, and then the other one for Espio the Chameleon, so we can able to expect about the fact that we can able to rank up our character roster by tremendously. Although, except the fact that once again, as far as we've already established that in the past, that it's kind of unfortunate that we can't seem to able to try to unlock not only Hello Kitty, but alongside with the forms of Miss Pac-Man as well, just because of time constraints, and not to mention those that, you know, we have a really terrible battery life whenever we first got ourselves our first iPhone, which is of course iPhone 5, but that's for a topic for another time. Actually, on the subject for this matter though, Sonic, is that did you know that there's actually yet another model of an iPhone has already came out just recently? Oh, what model was that? Well, basically, they somehow released, out of nowhere, iPhone 16e. Oh, what difference will that be? Well, not much, aside from the fact that, well, they somehow downgrade several upgrades compared to the forms of how it does it for iPhone 16, as well as iPhone 16 Pro. Oh, let me guess, the lack of 3 eye cameras, and not to mention though, there's no camera control options, and also, what else is there? Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure it still uses the USB-C charging port, I'm pretty assuming. Yeah, it still uses the forms of that USB-C charging port to able to actually charge up your phone and everything. And what else does it have? Yeah, there's only like one camera eye, which, as far as I do heard about it, that the quality itself is not that great for iPhone 16e. Likely, for instance, though, is about the fact that the picture quality is a little bit kind of blurry in some areas, or especially noticeable as likely frazzled or something. Well, mind you, it has been quite some time since we actually mentioned something relates to iPhone kind of topic, but either way, oh jeez, we just realized that we need to be very cautious with this section right here, because otherwise, if we're too slow, this means we'll end up fall off and die. But thankfully though, this stage is pretty much a piece of cake. Yeah, especially because concerning for that, well, we did manage to practice this on our spare own time for a bit, just trying to get used to with the forms of the level gimmicks, as well as the theming of the levels, so, and as you can tell, we somehow managed able to grab every single puzzle pieces in this level, no problem, especially because we've no any other location, so everything else will become to expect. Now, as you can see for about a few seconds ago, we actually got ourselves our movie gallery, which means about the fact that we somehow managed to unlock something for the likes of only exclusively for the 3DS version alongside with the Switch version, so it's not going to be on the Wii version for sure, especially because that feature was not in the Wii version to begin with. So either way, so let's move on to the next level, which does manage to take place in a beach environment. So in some cases we have World 9-2 Gushing Geysers. So yeah, this level is going to be a lot of like, well, let's just say that this level is going to be filled to the brim with a lot of geysers that we have to able to try to cope with it. So yeah, I guess that's the main purpose of this entire stage itself. So yeah, it's pretty weird able to actually go into one of those familiar world themes for a while, especially that unlike in Tropical Freeze, there's only like 3 special levels. In Journey Forms have been World 7, which is of course Secret Solution or something like that. So, well, mind you, it has been about a year ago since we've last played Tropical Freeze, specifically on the Switch version, just because of faster loading times and all that stuff, and also, to me though, the best visual fidelity. So either way, but that's just me. So anyway, the next subject we'd like to point out as well is about the fact that let's talk about the forms of the pre-order bonus items you might as well get if you do manage to able to buy Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 Plus 4 Digital Deluxe Edition, which does manage to contain skate decks, and alongside with the forms of Creator Skater Appeal, and on top of that, bonus in-game music, and on top of that, there's also going to be this very cool playable status. Like, for instance, though, there's actually this particular cool hoverboard, and on top of that, 2 playable characters plus 3 if you want to count with the forms if you do manage to pre-order the game at first glance or something like that. So, for instance, though, you might able to actually get the familiar character from the likes of Doom. That's what appears to be Doom Slayer Skater. In addition to that, there's also relevant Skater or something like that. And yeah, that's as far as we can able to say for this particular point. And as well as that, though, is that if you do manage to able to actually purchase an early access of Digital Deluxe Edition of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 plus 4, you're able to actually get receiving, you know, early access, which does manage to contain on the information, receive the game 3 days earlier on 8th of July, in some cases in 2025, so it's going to be roughly similar to the forms of how it does it with Sonic X Shadow Generation since back in last year. So yeah, that seems pretty cool. In addition to that, you're able to actually access to that particular Foundry demo access, which does manage to contain 2 playable skaters, 2 playable parks, and limited soundtracks. So because of that, though, yeah, there's nothing right to hum about. As well as that, though, you get yourselves this very cool skater, which appears to be the wireframe Tony Shredder, or just any shader or something like that. So yeah, that seems pretty cool, though. But again, the release date for that particular upcoming remaster/remake of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 plus 4, or should I say 3 and 4 combined, is that it still is going to be releasing until the 11th of July in 2025. In some cases onto the forms of in the second half, in terms of the forms of 2025. So because of this, though, yeah, I was quite pleasant and surprised. And it's also worth noting for too, is that unlike the forms of how it does it in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 plus 2 as a remake for a multitude of platforms, that the game was expected able to actually be developed by Vicarious Visions and all that stuff, which is always a huge plus, especially because concerning for that, how well does the Vicarious Visions did in the past, ranging from Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, alongside with the forms of some other titles as well. But one thing I did not expect, that the developer for the likes of the upcoming, you know, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 plus 4, is that the actual developer for that particular game this time around is going to be most likely, well, still Activision, alongside with the forms of the collaboration with Tony Hawk, but the actual developer is going to be, for reals this time, is what appears to be by the forms of Iron Galaxy Studios. So, yeah, that was pretty unexpected. Yeah, tell me about it, especially because I do heard about that particular company, but I've never actually heard it up until recently, thanks to the forms of the existence of, you know, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 plus 4 as a remake/remaster of sorts. So, yeah, anyway. Oh, and speaking of the forms of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, you might be a little bit disappointed about the fact that there's no career mode, as we've somehow used to from the likes of the original version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4. Like, you go around in the towns and all that stuff, and once you're able to try to get onto several spots, you're able to actually access to one of the challenges. Well, suffice to say though, with the upcoming remake of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, it might actually contain most of these stages within a 2-minute time limit system. So because of that though, yeah, I'm pretty much used to that though. Although despite the fact that trying to go through every single challenges all in one session is a bit stressful, mind you, because of all that. Well, a lot of learning curve needs to be involved, and on top of all that stuff, though, it's just about the fact there's a lot of obstacles gets in your way sometimes. But regardless of everything else, though, it's about the fact that we still managed to be able to, you know, have a lot of fun playing through Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 plus 2 so far for the Nintendo Switch version. Even though, despite the fact that it does have some glaring issues, what I've noticed is that the amount of stuttering is just, well, a bit of a nuisance to me, especially because, while it did run quite well on the Nintendo Switch, mind you, but it's just that there are a few rare occasions about the fact that the actual game can sometimes feel a bit too much stuttery at some points, which does feel a little bit distracting, but once in a blue moon is about the fact that if there's like too much stuff on screen or something like that, obviously stuttering becomes immediately apparent. So, but regardless of such though, it is nice to be able to play that particular remake of not one but two games on a go, especially that I'm really looking forward to able to try to pre-order 3+4 for the likes of the Switch version to me, because obviously though Nintendo Switch rocks so hard, especially because yeah, you know, Nintendo Switch is so much more successful. So, and I wonder why that Nintendo Switch 2 was now a thing, so either way. Anyways, let's move on to the next level, which appears to be taking place in the Ruins world. That's what appears to be World 9-3, Spiky Surprise. Oh gee, I wonder what this level is going to play out to be. Well, it might be filled to the brim with a lot of spikes, if I'm assuming so anyway though, Sonic, but either way, let's not get ahead of ourselves to this point right now, because either way, speaking of the forms of another stuff we would like to point out as well, is that for what I've double-checked, enjoying the forms within the upcoming DVD/Blu-ray release of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, you know, the movie itself, it does manage to able to realize about the fact that the DVD version, as be expected, does manage to contain lesser amounts of bonus features, unlike the forms of how it does on the Blu-ray version, and even nowadays with the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray as well, because as far as you do point things out for this point, Tails, is that on the DVD version, it only contains 4 special features, which does manage to contain Enter Shadow, Sonic Family Fun, and Robotnik Family Reunion, Ivor, and Gerald, and also the Fox, the Echidna, and the Hedgehog, and that's about it basically. So because of that though, whilst unlike the forms of how it does it on the Blu-ray version, as well as the 4K UHD Blu-ray, is that it does manage to able to contain some jam-packed full of content when it comes to the forms of special features in mind. So, although we're still able to actually experience 4 of those bonus features for the sake of the forms within the DVD release, which appears to be Sonic Family Fun, Enter Shadow, and Robotnik Family Reunion with Ivor and Gerald, and also the Fox, the Echidna, and the Hedgehog, but there's even more content that was not found on the DVD release, such as, for instance though, For the Love of Sonic directing a trilogy, as well as the forms of live-action Lunacy, acting opposite puppets, and also from the Cry Tank to London, I think it's what it says anyway, The World of Sonic, and in addition to Team Sonic vs. Shadow, A Very Sonic Christmas, gag reel, and finally deleted scenes. So because of that though, even though technically for the fact that A Very Sonic Christmas has already been in existence onto YouTube, by the way, from the likes of the forms of Paramount Pictures themselves, so as a result, it is a nice little bonus to have, especially because concerning for that, well, I found it was a little bit weird that back in June forms within 2022, that obviously though, after the forms of that particular, well, the DVD/Blu-ray release of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, that usually for multitude of versions does manage to contain the animated short almost instantly. Like for instance though, we're able to actually experience seeing Sonic Drome Home, but that's not the case with Sonic the Hedgehog 3 this time around, because as far as I'm aware, the DVD version sadly does not contain A Very Sonic Christmas, sadly, but that's just mainly because as far as I'm aware, that every nowadays is that DVD versions does manage to contain lesser amount of content compared to the forms of how it does on the Blu-ray version, and even with 4K UHD Blu-ray these days, especially because, well, anyone else attempt to prefer, you know, watching films in HD alongside with the forms of, you know, amazing quality with UHD in mind. So, I digress. So anyways, let's move on now to the next level, which does manage to take place in a cave environment, and suffice to say, we're now moving on to World 9-4, Mischievous Moles. So, oh boy, I think this might actually be the only level in the whole entire world that we do need to ride on the minecart for sure, just because, you know what I mean, when it comes to the forms of the entire cave world, obviously though we have to ride on any of those minecarts in general before you're able to progress. So either way, let's just see what happens here, which sure enough, yep, we're not able to ride on one of those minecarts until we've somehow progressed. So yeah, that's as far as we can able to say about the forms of, kind of thinking about it though, actually, is about the fact that I believe we've only just got about 1 month left until Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie for DVD and Blu-ray release is almost getting closer to its release. So logically though, Sonic, is about the fact that that'll be pretty good to able to add Sonic the Hedgehog 3 into our Sonic movie collection, especially because, just like the forms of how it does it in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, alongside with the forms of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, that are obviously though, that, as we expected, we've got it both on the DVD and Blu-ray version, so just in case, we can able to actually watch those films from time to time, usually for on the go with the DVD portable player, and experiencing the film within gorgeous HD 1080p quality for the Blu-ray version for not only for the PlayStation 3, but alongside with the forms the Xbox One and of course PlayStation 4, because I almost said Xbox 360 for some reason, because as far as I'm aware, the Xbox 360 does not play Blu-ray discs or anything else for that sort of capacity, so yeah, you probably get the idea for this point, Tails, especially because, once in a blue moon is about the fact that we can pretty much expect that we were originally trying to able to get ourselves with the forms of that particular, well, Blu-ray player for the future, for able to get, with the multi-region version of one of those DVD players or Blu-ray player for that matter, for able to try to test out our DVD copy of Tiny Toon Adventures How I Spend My Vacation movie, but ultimately though, we just like to keep it sealed anyway, and plus we just love to have that for our collection, because we just love collecting physical stuff for our collection's sake, especially because we've already got technically 2 digital versions of the actual film itself on Apple TV and Xbox systems, so well, technically speaking though, on Xbox One, but that's just mainly because, obviously though, it was kind of unfortunate it was not available on PlayStation stores anymore, because I can definitely assure to you right from the start though, is that, well, it's hard for me to talk about. Dang it, I accidentally bumped onto one of the platforms, and as a result, it just led me straight into Death Zone, so because of that though, well, at the very least, on the plus side is though, Tails, is that we somehow got the puzzle piece, but still, this level's pretty tricky, I'm not gonna lie, especially because, as you can tell, when it comes to the forms of transition, when it comes to the forms of not only the minecart sections, but also, as you can tell, we definitely need to avoid not only a lot of crystals, but alongside with the forms of those moles that keep on tossing bombs at us, so yes, it's definitely a little bit trickier than the forms of how it does on the previous stages as far as we somehow experienced with already, but on the plus side is about the fact that we've somehow got every single puzzle pieces in this level so far, so yeah, that's off to a pretty good progress so far. Especially about the fact that we weren't spoke too soon on this point though, Sonic, especially because, well, there might be a couple of times that if we do end up missing a couple of those puzzle pieces in the future, then obviously though, you know what to do a lot of editing stuff. Yeah, especially because concerning for that, well, we're pretty much almost done with the forms of this whole entire game of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD for sure. And why do I keep on getting hit by those stupid bats? I mean, they just literally get in our way, But hopefully though, we're not gonna able to mess this up again, I hope. Especially because maybe it's because of the forms of hesitation that we keep on screwing up from. Well, hopefully though, third time lucky is a charm, I guess, when it comes to able to try to bypass that particular ending section. So, yeah, for the most part, this level is not too shabby, despite we ended up dying a couple of times because of all that hesitation, especially in this ending section, because how on earth am I supposed to be able to avoid these bats? I mean, seriously. I mean, I did manage to try to perform light jumps and all that stuff, but most of the time, I easily guaranteed able to get hit by these bats more often, so... But regardless of such though, on the plus side is that everything else in this level is complete, so... Well, aside from the forms of time attack, which there's nothing right to home about, so either way, let's move on to the next level, which does manage to take place in the forest environment, and suffice to say, we can move on to World 9-5, Topsy Turvy. So, and as far as I'm aware, I believe this particular level requires you to be able to do a lot of rhythm involved, especially because if you couldn't tell from the background music, if you can definitely hear in the background, we might able to actually try to get a lot of timing requirement, especially because, well, the main emphasis on this level right here is that, as you can see, those little platforms right there decides they're able to actually go into either horizontal position or vertical position. So it's all just a matter of the forms of a rhythm-based formula. So because of this though, yeah, if you made one wrong move, then obviously though you have to restart that platforming section again. So yeah, for the most part, this level's not too shabby for the most part, especially because, well, if you know the timing correctly, then you would able to actually find a couple of secrets. Like, for instance, there's going to be some bonus areas from time to time. So yeah, yeah, there's one thing I totally forgot to mention about this, by the way, is that the majority of World 9, not only for the 3DS version, but also with the Switch version in mind, that obviously though is about the fact that we can able to try to find some more bonus areas now, especially because, well, generally speaking, like I said before, is that there's going to be a lot of puzzle pieces that needs to be found, especially because, well, that way we can able to unlock some more movie galleries as far as we already do know, especially, well, keep that in mind though, is that the movies we're going to be unlocking are basically based off from CGI cutscenes that involves around not only with Donkey Kong, but also with Diddy Kong as well. And this could be also includes with the forms of the opening cutscene and the ending cutscene as well. So because of that though, yeah, relatively speaking, we can able to classify, able to realize that's what the movie gallery is all about, within not only for the 3DS version, but also the Switch version as well. So either way. And also, I do apologize for that particular commentary. It gets a little bit slightly wobbly sometimes, but that's just mainly because I almost felt a bit slightly sick. But regardless of such though, we are still fine as it is. It's just about the fact that no matter what though, we have to take it too easy for ourselves when it comes to doing not only the amount of editing process we have to deal with at this point in time, but also about the fact with a lot of emphasis on commentary as well. So because of that though, yeah, because again, we do massively apologize about the forms of the lack of uploading schedules in the past few days, just because of all that. You know what I mean, a lot of droughts has been involved with our channel, especially because, well, thankfully we've somehow got back on track, but I wouldn't guarantee for the fact that we can able to try to catch up in terms of the forms of uploading schedules for anytime soon, especially because of all that. Well, you know what I mean, a lot of complications has been involved, and on top of all that stuff though, we are still waiting for Switch 2 to be finally happening, well, in terms of the forms of the price tag, and the forms of the release date as well, which it'll still be coming until specifically for this year, specifically in 2025, so yeah, that's as far as we can able to point things out for the sake of time, so yeah, anyway, I think you get the idea for this point, so. And also, from what I've heard anyway, is that apparently Amiibos might able to actually make a comeback for Nintendo Switch 2. Oh, why is that then? Well, please don't tell me you've looked up on leaks, haven't you? No, not really. It's just about the fact that for I've researched on something, they did say for the fact that Nintendo Switch 2 appears to have NFC, which is very similar to the forms of how it does it for Switch 1, but as well as from that though, Wi-Fi 6. So, because what I've noticed is that the original Switch only attempts to able to actually support Wi-Fi 5, so I guess no matter what though, with Switch 2 in mind, will be a little bit more of an improvement over the forms of how it does it for Switch 1 in terms of Wi-Fi stuff. I mean, time will tell though, especially because, well, at this point in time, we've only got about 20 more days to go until we hear more about the forms of Nintendo Switch 2 at long last, ever since in June forms of some time in January in 2025. So, yeah, anyway. Oh, and back onto the subject, when it comes to the forms of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 Plus 4, is that I've also did somehow realize that there's going to be a collector's edition that's going to be involved too. And no matter what though, what the actual content still somehow brings us into, for the collector's edition coming up soon, well, it obviously contains not only the full game itself, but alongside with the forms of the digital deluxe edition content, as well as that though, there's also this very cool skateboard, which does manage to feature an emblem to represent a birdhouse. So, yeah, it did somehow manage to able to say limited edition full-size birdhouse skateboard deck. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Especially it does also contain wings itself as well. So yeah, pretty cool for that particular collector's edition they somehow brought ourselves into on Amazon, especially for that particular website in mind. So, dang it, I wasn't hesitating, so whoops. Although luckily though, Sonic, is about the fact that we can bring Diddy Kong out again, so we can able to potentially try this part again. So I'm pretty sure with that particular barrel, as we saw from earlier, I'm pretty sure it just takes you back onto a safe spot again. So there's no bonus area to be found on that particular spot, I don't think. So, and I get the horrible feeling for the fact that since that we on to puzzle piece number 5 for right now, and suffice to say, we might able to actually get the 6th puzzle piece at the very end of the stage, and it may look like we're about to be off by 1 puzzle piece again. So, seriously, it's going to be one of the most occurrent things in terms of the forms of how the progression itself goes for Donkey Kong Country Returns, alongside with the forms of Tropical Freeze as well. And yeah, I guess you're right, we're off by 1 puzzle piece left again. So yeah, it's only a matter of time we can able to do a lot of emphasis on editing stuff for you know what I mean, just to prepare for the final parts coming up. So yeah, I'm generally surprised about the fact that we're actually getting very close towards the end of this, basically, despite with the forms of the lack of uploading schedules in the past, like I stated before, just because of all that unlucky moments that happened for us. So anyway, so that pretty much does it for Topsy Turvy. So yeah, pretty cool level, especially it requires a lot of like rhythm, and on top of all that stuff though, a lot of timing itself is required as well. So either way, so I think we should probably do one more level for today, and that's going to take place in a cliff world. So either way, so let's get into World 9-6, Tumble Full. Oh gee, this level's going to be quite interesting, don't you think? Well, especially because we have to avoid a lot of tar balls, and soon we'll be able to actually manage to able to get touched one of them. I get the feeling for the fact that we might not only try to able to get covered in tar, but also about the fact that we can't jump even higher from that particular point. So yeah, anyway. So there are some another stuff I would like to point out as well, is that apparently though, we can able to celebrate not only one film from the likes of Blue Sky Studios, but also one of the games coming up for celebrating the biggest number, which appears to be the 30th anniversary. So let's start things off with the forms of one of those films first, to able to try to celebrate the 20th anniversary recently. That's what appears to be for the fact that Blue Sky Studios' film called Robots has officially become 20 years old just recently, ever since back in 2005. And while looking back on it though, well, I haven't watched that film for donkey's years, which I already know for the fact that that film is now available for the likes of Disney Plus, because, well, you already know for the fact that Disney now owns everything at this point in time, but I digress. So, yeah, with Robots in general, for the likes of the actual film itself, I definitely heard about it, especially because it does manage to feature one of the most iconic actors in the past, which appears to be Robin Williams. That's, he also did the voice of, the Genie from the likes of Aladdin, the glorious all-time classic, released in 1992, but I digress. So yeah, congratulations to, well, Robots, who were able to celebrate their 20th anniversary since 2005. And by that time, until next year, that Ice Age 2, The Meltdown, is going to be celebrating its 20th anniversary until next year. Yep, alongside with the films of some other films as well, ranging from Over the Hedge and Flushed Away and Casino Royale from the likes of the James Bond movie, and also amongst with the films of Bambi 2 as well, and in addition to The Wild. Oh, don't remind me about that film, because it's just a Madagascar ripoff made by Disney of all things? I mean, seriously, whoever thought that was a good idea to able to try to release that after the release of the films of Madagascar, but I'd regress. Anyway, when it comes to the film's the 30th anniversary of one of the most well-acclaimed Super Nintendo games of all time, and that's what appears to be Chrono Trigger, which, yes. Apparently, though, from what I've heard anyway, that Chrono Trigger is celebrating 30th anniversary for this year, and it may look like various projects are planning right now. So because of this, though, I'm very curious to know about the fact that if potentially that Chrono Trigger were able to actually finally get a chance to able to get released from the likes of the Nintendo Switch system, either on the forms of any online subscription services or a full-on remake for the likes of the beloved classic Super Nintendo game. I mean, who knows? We might be able to actually hear more about it in the future. So, I mean, God knows, until likely, for instance, though, with the Summer Game Fest or something like that, but we have no idea at this point. So, and also keep that in mind, that's going to be the final time to try to able to actually look after the barrel for able to try to able to, well, you know what I mean, trying to discover one of those secrets if you couldn't tell, but either way, I get a horrible feeling we are once again off by one puzzle piece again, so yeah, nothing ordinary or anything else of that sort of capacity, but still. It just feels a little bit annoyingly consistent sometimes with all that. Missing by one puzzle piece without any solvable reasons, but either way, it's just one of those moments, I guess. So either way, and also the final thing we want to point out is that apparently though, with Sonic Unleashed PC version made by fans alike, has already managed able to bring up several mods recently, which, as far as I do know, that they obviously created a mod which appears to be replacing Chip with Hatsune Miku, which, to be fair, it does look pretty fascinating though to me, especially because concerning for all that, well, you know what I mean about the fact that Sonic Unleashed PC is already getting themselves mods, especially, so I suppose technically that was actually the last thing we want to mention about in terms of today's subject, for that matter, is that, yes, every once in a while there's going to be a DVD release / Blu-ray release of the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie collection, which I'm pretty sure it does contain not only Sonic the Hedgehog 1, as well as Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, all in one particular package with that particular bundle, so, and I believe that particular compilation is going to be releasing around the exact same day, as in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie is expected to be releasing on the 14th of April. So, yeah, that'll be exciting, especially because if you missed out on the 2 movie collections since in 2022, well, that'll be your perfect opportunity to get that compilation. So, either way, so suffice to say for this point, guys, is that we get endings of this point right here. So join us next time for more of Let's Play of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD for the Nintendo Switch / Nintendo Switch 2 for its backwards compatibility, is that we might able to actually conclude every single aspect in terms of the Cloud World and, of course, showing off the forms of some extra stuff as well. So yeah, that'll be exciting, so we'll see you guys until tomorrow.